Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Fighter Heart podcast. I'm here with Shannon today. How's it going, Shannon?
It's going great.
Good to have you on. We're grateful for you to share your story with us. We'd like to get into it pretty quickly here, so if you can just give us a little background about who you are, where you grew up, um, and then we'll start talking Fighter Heart, and how you got into coaching and stuff.
Yeah, so I am a triathlon coach. I live in northern Utah. So a little town called Heber City. It's up by Park City, Utah. Most people know Park City, Utah. So I live where training for triathlon is super wonderful. In the mountains, plenty of places to ride, lakes to swim in, beautiful runs. It's really beautiful.
Cool. Where you grew up in Utah?
I did. I grew up in Salt Lake City and just recently moved up into the mountains about, oh man, maybe 7 years ago.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
What made you leave the city?
Oh, geez. So Salt Lake City has this thing called an inversion where the air gets trapped. It's something to do with the mountains and the Great Salt Lake, and I don't understand all the science behind it, but the really dirty air gets trapped. And so if you live down in the Salt Lake City Valley, the air quality can be really terrible. And I just couldn't take it anymore. I mean, there are many, many days where you can't train outside because
Oh,
the
it's
air
like
quality is so bad.
that.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's bad. Like if you drive up into the mountains, when you're driving back down into the valley, you can see it. You can see the layer of air. And it's not all the time, but it's often enough that I just wanted to get away from it. Plus, the mountains are it's better bike riding up here and less crowds. And I just kind of wanted to get where it was quieter.
yeah, of course. It sounds beautiful. Is it like smog basically? Like is it
Yes.
that's what it is? Yeah, I know what you're
Yeah.
talking about. Thinking
It can get really bad too. It's crazy.
did you grow up? Were you an athlete yourself?
I was, but I was more, you know, just the typical sports, baseball, basketball kind of thing. I didn't really know that triathlon and biking, professional cycling were a thing. So it wasn't big out here in the West, I guess, or I was just sheltered from it. I didn't know much about it. But yeah, I grew up really active on the lakes, water skiing, just doing everything that I could possibly do. Didn't find triathlon until later in life, though.
How'd you come along triathlon? Oh, well, let's start with triathlon. So I don't know much. So is a triathlon, is that swimming, biking, and running? Is that the three?
That's right. Yep. In that
Okay.
order. Yeah,
Oh, it's that order too?
it is that order.
Oh, okay. And how much, like how far are you swimming? How far are you biking? How far?
Oh, that's a very complicated question.
Yeah.
So there are about 5 different distances of triathlon. So you've got everything from a super sprint, uh, which is a really cool up and coming distance, by the way. And that's the shortest. And then all the way up to an Ironman, which is, just over a 2 mile swim, over 100 mile bike ride, and then a marathon run.
Wow.
And then you have other distances in between. You have a sprint, an Olympic, a 70.3, and an Ironman.
And what are you training mostly?
So with paratriathlon, that is primarily sprint distance.
Okay.
Same with the neurodiverse triathlon. That's actually um, sprint distance or a little bit shorter, adjusted for that group of people.
So it's,
But
yeah.
there are paratriathletes that do train for the long courses like 70.3 and Ironman. But for those paratriathletes that are in the process of working toward the Paralympics, that's a sprint distance.
So the sprint distance for swimming is what, like half a mile swim? Is that something?
It's a 750-yard swim.
Okay.
Yep. And then just over a 12-mile bike ride and then a 5K run.
Doesn't sound too sprint to me. It sounds like
Exactly, right? Yeah. And when you think about going all out, I mean, they are at maximal efforts for those distances. It's a really tough event.
yeah. So how did you I know you started off in the main sports. How'd you get over to triathlon kind of sports?
So I've been working in the fitness industry for over 20 years. I started as a strength and conditioning coach. And I was doing that. I needed my own something to do to stay active. I had kids at that point, and those traditional basketball, baseball sports weren't not accessible at that age. So somebody told me about a triathlon. I didn't know what one was. I was early, like kind of, I think mid-20s at that point. And so I just went out, tried one, did terribly, by the way. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was in for. I just thought, I'm active, I'm athletic, I'll go and do this. And I'm a very competitive person, especially with myself. So the fact that I did so poorly just fueled me to find out everything I could about this sport, and I fell in love with it. So I went from my background in strength and strength and conditioning coaching, and got my education and became certified in triathlon.
Oh wow.
And yeah, so I've been coaching triathlon for 20 years.
20 years. The scariest part's the swimming in my eyes, because you could just, slow down how fast you're running or biking, but swimming, you're just gonna like drown if if you don't do it, like
Yeah,
you
you're
have to
not
learn how
alone.
to, yeah, right. Like
Swimming is a lot of people's least favorite when they come into the sport. So you're in good company with that. Yeah.
I could imagine. Jeez. All right. So like you got your degree, and then when did you get like your first pupil, I guess?
My first people. Geez, I mean, really, it's been so long. It was so long ago. I'm trying to think who was my first athlete. Anyway, it was a really long time ago.
Okay.
But I coached very part-time, really locally. We have a triathlon series in Utah, a series of races. So I, would find friends in the sport and I'd try out coaching with them. And then it just grew and grew. And then about 2018, I think it was in that range, I sought out a mentor. I wanted to take coaching to a new level for myself. So I started working with a coach named Wes Johnson, and he started just mentoring me to take me to a new level of coaching. And he was at that time a paratriathlon coach, and he really urged me to look into it and get into that area of coaching. So it was around 2018 that I became certified for paratriathlon coaching. And that just I just fell in love with that. It put a whole new face on triathlon for me.
Mhm.
So while at this point, I still coach everybody. I coach able body, I coach Ironman distance, I coach short course distance, sprint distance. But I really am passionate about growing paratriathlon and helping that category of racing grow and helping those people find more of a community in triathlon.
Why are you so passionate about the para part more so than able-bodied?
That's a really good question. I had a feeling you'd probably ask that, so I've been thinking a lot about it. And I think um, there's a lot less ego in paratriathlon. I think people that come into the sport are very real, and I just really like that. they support each other. They're very, very coachable. Their work ethic and their determination to learn this and get better and get stronger and get faster is huge. But there just seems to be, for the most part, not a lot of ego in that demographic, and I really, really like that. Just such great people. I've just met such great people and great athletes.
Oh, that's awesome. I we've interviewed dozens of Paralympic athletes on the show, but we never had a coach before, so it's a different perspective.
Wow.
Yeah.
First, I'm honored.
So what kind of goes into the training? Can you give us an idea of like how you train and these athletes?
Yeah, so most of my work is virtual because my athletes live all over the country. So we work off of a platform where I can put their training sessions up, and then they will do the work. Their watch will collect the data will upload to Training Peaks, and I can see what they're doing. So there's a lot of tracking that way. But more important than that for me is the constant flow of communication, both through calls and messages, but also video. The more that I can get an athlete to record themselves swimming and have somebody record them running so that I can see their form and make sure things are looking good, the better. So yeah, lots and lots of communication since we're virtual.
And 2018, you said you started. So did you start like, going on social media saying, hey, I'm a coach, submit, applications, or like, how did you get athletes to sign up with you?
It started for me more with coaching camps. So I had, again, this great mentor who recommended me to USA Triathlon to be a coach for some of their camps. USA Triathlon would put on training camps for paratriathletes, both like talent ID camps to try to bring people in and see if they sort of had what it takes, I guess, for less of a better word. And then also just skills camps and training camps. So I was lucky enough to be hired to go and coach several of those camps. That introduced me to a lot of people, got my name out a little bit, and then it just seems like once you have one or two athletes sign on with you, the just word spreads, you get to know people, they tell people, and it just rolls forth from there. Yeah.
So what is it like on a weekly basis? What does your week look like? How are you have like sessions in the morning, or how does it go?
So my week as a coach
Yeah.
is a lot easier than the athletes' weeks.
Yeah.
As an athlete.
Okay, yeah,
So
maybe both.
yeah,
Times.
I will put up, so usually Friday, Saturday-ish, I will look over their trainings from the previous week. And I'm looking at them, most days, but I will really dig into the data. And then those are the days that I will plan for the next week. So I'll try to get their entire week of training up by, say, Sunday for most of them. And then that's the biggest part of my load. And then their work begins and they start their training sessions and they have their exact training protocols to do in swim, bike, run, and strength every day. Everybody has a rest day. And then through the week, I am just back and forth in contact with them. If they have questions about their training, if they need to switch something up, we will just communicate that and switch it around as needed. I'm also looking at their data points, making sure they're doing what is prescribed, making sure that they're not looking like they're overtraining or undertraining. So yeah, during the week, it's just a communication and a balancing act of making things work for the individual athletes. On the
Mm.
weekend, it's getting the bulk of their training up for them so that they know what's in store for them the upcoming week.
So if you have an athlete that's training for a triathlon, like how long are they training before? You know, like how many triathlons does someone do in a year?
Oh, that's super varied.
Mm.
The athletes that are up at that professional level and trying for the Olympics, they are racing a lot. Once the season starts, they are racing often and they're going international. And I have 3 athletes returning home from Portugal today, tomorrow, because they just raced yesterday in Portugal. So, but then, you have those beginning athletes coming in and they're just maybe racing 1 or 2
Yeah.
races a season. And those are usually local. They'll race something nearby
Hmm.
wherever they live. So, it's very, very different depending on the athlete and their goals. Yeah.
Gotcha. So what are like so right now you have three coming back from Portugal. Oh, excuse me. You have three coming back from Portugal. So I guess they had a triathlon over there that they just competed in, I
They
assume.
did.
Yeah.
Yep. A
Oh,
world triathlon. These are more geared toward those athletes racing professionally, those paratriathletes racing professionally, working toward the next Paralympic Games
yeah.
2028.
And they were all in the same race, I guess. All three of them.
No, there were 2 vision impaired athletes, so they were in the same race. And then there was a PTS 5 athlete. So with paratriathlon, they need to go through a classification process. So depending on their disability, they are classified by professional qualified classifiers, and they will put them in a category that fits whatever their disability is, and
Hmm.
then they race in that category. So I had a vision impaired athlete who has partial vision. She's not 100% blind, but so she is in a vision impaired category. And then I have an athlete without a hand. So she is in a category that they call PTS 5, which is the least impaired. The least of the physical impairments is a PTS 5.
I gotcha. Is there like PTS 4 and 3 and 2 and 1 also? Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Gotcha. All right, that's awesome. I mean, so there's
Yeah.
so many different kinds of athletes that you're training. There's not like one set regimen. So you're making everyone's regimen, I guess. You decide
Right.
what they're, so that's a lot of work because you have
Yeah,
to tailor everything to who the person is.
it is. It's a lot. I mean, when you're thinking about how to prescribe a training plan for a vision impaired athlete who is going to be doing it mostly indoors and on a trainer, and then you have an athlete who is a wheelchair athlete who's racing in a hand cycle and a racing chair, and then yeah, everything in between. There's a lot of variation and specificity in
Yeah.
paratriathlon, and I think that's another reason I love it so much. It's just always changing. There are always new things to figure out. There's with paratriathlon, we're always adapting things to fit the athlete's needs, and it keeps us all sharp. It keeps us all thinking. It's really fun.
Do you have people that you work with that help you with the regimens or it's just you?
It's just me. I definitely have colleagues that I collaborate with for
Yeah.
sure. I think that's so important with coaching. I
Yeah.
think the more a coach can collaborate, find an expert coach in swimming and find an expert coach in biking and bike fit, because none of us are experts in everything. So
Yeah.
the more a coach can have great colleagues that are really knowledgeable and collaborate with those on behalf of their athlete, the better.
What do you think your main, or no, not what do you think, what is your main motivator for this?
For coaching,
Yeah.
main motivator is to see my athletes succeed when they reach the goals that they have for themselves, or when they see progress, when they see themselves getting faster and hitting, benchmarks that they had set for themselves, that's for me what it's all about. And just seeing the joy that triathlon can bring. It's a really great community. Triathlon in general is a great community. Paratriathlon is even greater, I think. So yeah, that's why I'm in it, to bring people to the sport and to see them do things they never really thought that they could do. Because triathlon is hard.
I can't imagine. Yeah, I can't imagine.
It's a hard sport.
I mean, you tell me a 5 mile bike ride, that's a lot, And you're telling me they're going like 20 miles. So yeah.
Yeah.
What is like on your, do you have goals like of what you want to do every year? Like, do you assess your goals like every year and like, all right, I want to have this many athletes, or like how do you create goals for yourself in this coaching world?
Wow, that's a really interesting question. And my answer is yes, I do, but not, I do in a more general sense. I think I do it without sitting down specifically and saying, what are my goals for this year? I think it's more of just a natural thing for me, I guess, if that makes sense. I'm always wanting to get better at what I do. I'm always wanting to learn and never stay stagnant. So I think year to year, I intuitively am finding ways to achieve that. I'm also always wanting to grow the support system and accessibility for paratriathlon. And so, for example, this last year, the year of 2024, I've been one of the people working on just creating a new coaching company. So we've launched a new coaching company called Podium Racing. And within Podium Racing, one of my biggest goals personally is to build Paratriathlon within Podium Racing. So yeah, things like that. I definitely am always each year just trying to make things bigger and better.
Is this one of your friends, or is this?
No.
Oh, hey, I think we're scheduled for 4:45, Zimri.
Okay,
All right, I'll see you in a little while.
for sure.
All right, thanks. All right, sorry about that.
No worries.
He jumped the gun a little bit.
He's excited.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, so obviously we're coming up towards the end here, so they're only little short interviews here, but so where can people find you on social media, and like, do you have a website or anything like that?
Yes. So my website would be Podium Racing, podium-racing.com. And my Instagram is at @Sci_try. At Sci_try. Just looking at my media guy. Yep, that's where you'd find me on social media. We're always posting all sorts of great stuff on there. More about the neurodiverse group that I work with as well. We have a nonprofit organization. It started to service just the neurodiverse group. So that's 100% volunteer. I don't get paid anything for the work I do for the neurodiverse group, but the foundation is expanding now because I really want to be raising money to help paratriathletes, because paratriathletes, it's so expensive for them. I mean, you think about a wheelchair athlete, every time they go to a race, they have to fly with their wheelchair, their hand cycle their racing chair, all this equipment. Same with vision impaired. Vision impaired athletes have to fly themselves and their guide to all of the races. So it just gets super pricey. So yeah, the foundation is going to serve paratriathletes as well as the neurodiverse. That is Podium Foundation or PCG Foundation. So, but information about that can also be found on the website.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah.
So we like to ask, what would you tell your younger self if you could talk to them now?
Oh, that's a great question. If I could tell my younger self something, it would be there are no constraints to what you can do. Don't let anybody tell you that there are certain things you have to do or a certain way you have to live your life. Just start off right out of the gate pursuing your passion and find a way to turn that into a career. You can do anything you want to do. That's what I would tell my younger self.
Beautiful. Good advice. Definitely. So we're gonna wrap it up here, but thank you so much again for coming on. And we would love to, stay updated on your story. We're gonna check out your website and your social media.
Great. Thanks for having me on. It was fun.
Of course, of course. Everyone else, thank you again for listening to another Fighter Heart podcast. We'll see you again next week.